Well, if you are just tuning in, this is LifeBites Live, and today we are talking about addiction and healing the family unit. Joining me is addiction specialist Dr. Reef, who is an assistant clinical professor of psychiatry at UCLA's Semel Institute for Neuroscience and the founder and medical director of the Control Center in Beverly Hills. Dr. Reef, welcome to the show. And I have to say, he is the sexiest man alive, according to People magazine, or at least one of them. So yeah,
at least one person.
No, but you know what's so funny? I thought I was the combo special, like trying to create entertainment and life, right? But I thought to myself, you really take the cake. You are a combo special because you do a lot of things, and I think that's wonderful. So, but we're here to talk about addiction.
Yeah, we don't need to talk about me. Let's focus on addiction. That's what it's about.
Well, let's talk about this because in the media, a lot of times it is focusing on the addict. Not really a lot is focusing on the effects of the family. Why do you think that is?
Well, I mean, the most important thing that I can tell people when I'm dealing with talking about addiction or talking about mental health issues, or the combination of the two, is that one, addiction is a family disease. First and foremost, anybody who is an addict that comes from a family or is dating someone or is married, addiction is a family disease. The second thing is addiction is a disease or disorder of our youth, because the majority of people that have an addiction had it when they were young. And our brains develop over time, and our brains aren't fully formed till we're about 24, 25. So any drug use or significant drug use prior to the age of 24 or 25 is going to impact the way that you develop your brain and the growth of your brain. So we learn things in our teenage years. That's why kids are so annoying. Adolescents are so crazy and so impulsive, because the brakes of their brain don't form until you're around maybe 17, 18, 20, 21. But the accelerator is jacked up from 12, 13 on. So these kids are running around super impulsive and they can't control their behavior. Wow. When you add drugs to that mix, all of a sudden they become adults that have a really hard time focusing, being able to control their own behavior, and being able to stop themselves from what they're doing.
Well, and you made an interesting point, because I want to make this point, because a lot of people don't realize this, and maybe you, because you're touching on it, is on an emotional level. If I start drinking heavily at 20 years old and I stop at 40, is it true that your emotional level is at 20? Like you kind of stop at that age group? Because that a lot of times people think, oh yeah, I've stopped, and they almost have to go back. Is that true?
Yeah, some people will say that you're paralyzed when you start becoming dependent on the drugs that you've been using, meaning your emotional development, your emotional growth stops. And whatever you were when you started really using, if you were 18, then you're kind of stuck at 18. It's like one of those cheesy movies like 17 Again or whatever those movies are where the person doesn't ever grow up. And there's some truth to that. The truth is that your emotional development, especially if you were young, doesn't really happen. And when you go to college, let's say somebody starts using when they're 17. When you go to college, you learn a lot of things. You learn how to deal with the opposite sex, you learn how to do time management, you learn how to get in relationships, depending on how crazy your high school years were. You learn all sorts of stuff. Now, if you're constantly doing drugs during that entire time period, drugs possess you. They take you over. Alcohol, prescription drugs, possess your life. You are no longer speaking as you when you're fully dependent on drugs or alcohol. You are speaking, the drugs are speaking for you. The drugs are like, drink again, drink again, drink again. They're not telling you, hey, you need to get a job, you need to work, you need to take care of your wife. It doesn't say anything like that.
So let's get into the programs that are out there or not. It's my perception that it doesn't feel like there's programs out there that talk to the addict and really heal the addict. But when the addict comes home in that recovery process with the whole family, are there really good programs out there, or is it just my perception that there aren't?
So I run a treatment center. I run an outpatient treatment center called the Control Center in Beverly Hills, which treats behavioral addictions like sex, gambling, shopping, internet video games, food, chemical addictions, prescription drugs, alcohol, other drugs, and mental health disorders. Mm-hmm. So I've seen it firsthand, and I've been the director of different high-end rehabs like Wonderland or Summit Centers or all these other big high-end, some celebrity, some not. And the main thing to learn is that addiction is a biological disease, meaning it affects your brain. It's a psychological disease, meaning things like ADHD, OCD, bipolar disorder, depression, all sorts of other mental health impairments coincide and work with the addiction to make you more impaired. It's a social disease. It affects your family, it affects your friends, it affects your relationships, boyfriend, girlfriend, all of that. And it's a spiritual disease because you lose your sense of self. You don't know where you stand in the world. You don't have the wherewithal or the confidence or the belief in yourself or the belief in anything to do anything with your life. So good treatment impacts all four of those things.
That's a really powerful message that you're talking about, because I was going to ask you about that, and I know that we have a lot of people that want to ask you some questions, and I know Julia is there very, very anxiously awaiting.
Yes, Dr. Reef, we have a lot of questions for you. So Tammy from Yuma, California says, I have 2 children who live in the house with an active alcoholic, my husband and their father. People always think that I should leave and take the kids, but I always think leaving is more disruptive. What should I do? He never follows through in getting help, and he is on his 3rd DUI. I am fed up and so drained. I don't know what I can do.
All right, so the tough one here is 2 words come to mind when I hear this: active alcoholic. Those are the things that ring in my ear. So if somebody, like I said, is under the influence of a drug or alcohol, then they are not functioning as themselves. You have a relationship. Your relationship is with booze. Your relationship is with prescription drugs. Whatever it is that's your drug of choice, that is always going to be your primary relationship until you're in recovery and you're actively not an alcoholic, you're actively in recovery from alcoholism. So you're never going to have the husband that you want, or your kids are never going to have the father that they desire or that they need until he gets treatment. So when I deal with families like this, a lot of the times it comes down to an ultimatum. And that ultimatum is, you're married to alcohol. You're not married to me. And until you can be married to me and take care of our kids, we can't live this life that we currently have. We need you to get treatment. And whatever that takes, whatever extreme measures we need to do to make sure that our father is back, our husband is back, that's what we're going to need to do. This person needs treatment.
Really, really great advice. Tammy, hopefully that helped you. We have another question from Betsy. She says, my husband has been sober for over a year. However, I find myself not fully trusting him that he can stay sober. I still have some of the same fears and anxieties that were there when he was drinking. What can I do to help this go away for myself?
Okay, so Betsy's got to really do 2 things. The first is trust the system, which is the recovery system. And the second is make sure her husband is involved in the sober community and the recovery system. I'm a big believer in AA. I think AA is a great collective support program and a spiritual program. It doesn't work for everyone, but for the majority of people, it really works well. Get involved in AA, or if you're not interested in AA, get involved in other support community programs. Have a therapist, get drug tested, because I guarantee you the family, and in this case Betsy, will feel a lot better knowing that her husband is being tested for alcohol and is not drinking, and is part of a recovery program where he has a sponsor, or he goes to AA meetings and he has a therapist, and there's other people looking out for him so that she's not alone in this journey with him.
Wow. Well, what would you say to either the active addict or the family member who really also is dealing with this right now? What advice, get involved. You just said that. Mm-hmm. Is there anything else, especially for the family member that is, they keep doing what I did, which is, enabling?
Yeah. The best advice I can give for the family is learn about the disease. Learn about the disorder. And that means Al-Anon. Al-Anon's a great program. Talk to the doctor. Talk to the addiction doctor. Talk to the psychiatrist. I'm a psychiatrist and an addiction doc and a relationship therapist. So when I deal with an addiction-related family, I'm dealing with the relationship aspect between the father, the kids, the wife, that whole deal. I'm dealing with the mental health disorder. What else is going on with that person? And I'm dealing with the addiction itself. So you can't just assume that the addiction is just about your husband. The addiction is about you, your kids, what it's doing to the family. Learn as much as you can about it. And if you need to get your own therapist to deal with it, do it.
Wow, that's some really important advice, and I think sometimes we want to put our head under, under the carpet and not have to deal with it, or hope that it goes away, or hope that it's going to get better. So I just want to thank you so much for being on the show today. This was some really good stuff.